In the third year after starting from scratch and achieving success, I had my first quarrel with Julian. He was so angry that he gnashed his teeth and pointed at me angrily, saying, "Emma, I don't want to see you again." I disappeared completely from his world as he wished. But when he found that there was no trace of me around him anymore, he went crazy. In the study, when Julian pointed at me angrily, I calmly said, "In that case, let's get divorced." He seemed unable to believe that those words had just come out of my mouth. "What did you say?" I reached into the bag beside me and took out a wrinkled agreement. I had practiced it countless times in my heart. But my hands were still as heavy as if filled with lead. I carefully checked the agreement in my hand and then carefully handed it to him. Afraid that he would see the vulnerability in my eyes, I didn't dare to look at him. "I don't love you anymore. Let's get divorced." After so many years of relationship, I ask for a peaceful breakup. I don't think it's too much. Julian stared at me tightly, as if trying to see me clearly. After a long, deathly silence, he knocked the agreement to the ground as if venting his anger. I was almost brought to the ground by his action, without any preparation. The brief dizziness in front of my eyes announced the weakness of my body. I steadied my mind and didn't let myself fall. In my ears was Julian's angry and resolute voice. "Emma, do you want a divorce? I'll fulfill your wish. Once you step out of this door, don't even think about stepping back in." I forced myself to hold my body up and squeezed out a decent smile at Julian. "I hope you won't regret what you said today." Sure enough, as soon as I said that, his face darkened a few more shades. After being together for many years, we always knew where to hit each other the hardest. Watching the last bit of affection in his eyes disappear and change from pain to indifference, I thought I should be happy, but somehow, my heart also felt as if it was grasped and crushed by a big hand, and it was extremely painful. I forcibly endured my emotions and the discomfort in my body. I turned around and went upstairs to pack my luggage. After simply taking some clothes, I was ready to leave. When I closed the door, the enlarged wedding photo on the wall made me couldn't help but take one more look. We really had a very happy smile on it at that time. I thought I probably would never have the chance to see him smile at me like that again. I didn't know how long I stood at the door looking at the photo. It wasn't until the driver downstairs impatiently pressed the horn and the harsh sound kept urging me that I came to my senses. I gently closed the door and walked downstairs with my luggage. Julian was standing by the stairs downstairs, with a cold face and not saying a word. In the past, he wouldn't have let me carry such heavy things in my hands. Seeing me like this, he would have come over eagerly to take the things in my hands. Then he would say to me playfully, "How could my precious wife carry these things? Let me do it." The sweetness of the past had become a thing of the past. This time I thought I only had myself. I pretended to be indifferent and went downstairs with my things and opened the door without looking at him again. It had started to rain lightly outside the door at some point. A gust of cold wind blew through me from the inside out. I couldn't help but shiver. Just as I was about to lift my foot, Julian's voice came from behind and I stopped my forward steps. "You." I expected him to say something to me that could make me soften my heart and give up this extremely difficult decision for me. However, he paused for a long time and finally didn't say anything. I no longer hesitated and mustered up my courage to pick up my luggage and close the last door. There was the sound of broken cups and saucers coming from behind, which was a bit harsh. I returned to the house that Julian and I bought when we first got married. At that time, our company hadn't gone public yet and Julian and I were just the most ordinary family among thousands of households. There were still our exclusive memories in that house. I thought it would be a good choice for me to use it as a resting place for the rest of my days. But it had been a long time and presumably it was already desolate there. After getting out of the car, the rain outside was heavier than before. I didn't bring an umbrella, so I had to run all the way to the eaves with my luggage. Ignoring the dampness on my body and my panting body, I took the elevator upstairs. I found the long-lost key and inserted it into the keyhole. But I couldn't open the door no matter what. Just as I was wondering, the neighbor next door heard the noise and opened the door to check. "Emma? Why are you here so late? Didn't you sell this house before?" A series of questions were thrown out and my head couldn't help but ache. The neighbor looked at my dazed and distracted look and came over to support me with some concern. "Emma, what's wrong with you? Where's Julian? I'll call him to pick you up." Yes, I remembered. This house was mortgaged out in the year when Julian and I decided to start from scratch. My memory really seemed to be getting worse and worse. Seeing the number that the neighbor was about to dial, I quickly stopped her. "Don't, he's very busy." I lied. But the neighbor curled her lips as if she had heard me say this countless times. "You always say he's busy. No matter how busy a man is, he should always take care of his wife. What's a home without a wife?" I just smiled and didn't answer. The window at the end of the corridor wasn't closed. A gust of wind blew over and I sobered up a lot. "Thank you for your kindness. I just forgot something and wanted to come and get it. Now it's all done." After I finished speaking, the neighbor insisted on seeing me downstairs. I couldn't resist and had to go with her. When we got downstairs, I dispelled her idea of seeing me off and told her that I had already called a taxi and asked her to hurry home. Watching her figure going upstairs made me breathe a long sigh of relief. Just when I didn't know where to go, Julian's phone call came. I was like finding a piece of driftwood in the vast sea and couldn't wait to answer it. "Emma, what are you doing? Why did you go to the place where we used to live?" Julian's questioning and puzzled voice came from the other side of the phone. I was hesitating about how to start talking when I heard him say impatiently again, "Since you've decided to get divorced, could you stop making me worry about your stupid affairs? Okay, it won't happen again." I heard my somewhat choked voice come out of my throat. Julian seemed to be startled by this voice and didn't say a word. Yeah, usually I was the strongest and never showed weakness easily like this, so it was no wonder Julian was shocked. After a long while, I heard his voice on the other end again. "Emma, it was you who said you wanted a divorce, wasn't it? I fulfilled your wish. Don't act like this. Who are you putting on this show for?" Hearing his cold words, I hung up the phone directly. Yes, everything was my own choice. What right did I have to feel aggrieved? At this moment, my emotions were like a net being pulled tighter and tighter. All these past events made it hard for me to breathe for a moment. The world spun around me, and then everything went black before my eyes, and I fell down. When I woke up again, all I could see was white. In a daze, I thought I had already arrived in heaven. The nurse beside me saw that I was awake and quickly went to call the attending doctor. The light of the flashlight shone on my pupils, making me a bit dizzy. After the examination, the doctor said to me with a somewhat solemn tone, "Your condition is getting worse and worse now. I don't know when you might fall asleep and never wake up again. As a doctor, I suggest that you have the operation as soon as possible. Although the operation won't completely remove the tumor in your brain even if it's successful, it can at least prolong your life." Looking at the doctor's mouth opening and closing, a series of words came out of it. Although the sound came from one place, it seemed to me that I heard these words from all directions. I shook my head, trying to make myself concentrate. "Okay, I'll think about it," I said. The doctor looked at me and sighed with some distress. At this time, my mobile phone rang. It was Julian. I struggled to pick up the phone. As soon as I answered it, I heard a woman's voice on the other end. "Julian, what would you like to eat today?" "Whatever you like." Julian's gentle voice came. Hearing the conversation on the other end, I was a bit stunned. Then on second thought, it was okay. At least when I left, Julian wouldn't be too lonely. However, there was still an unstoppable sourness in my chest. Before I could sort out my emotions, I heard him say again, "Since you want a divorce, let's meet at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau next Monday." Facing me, Julian became cold again. "Okay," I said with difficulty. After hearing my answer, he hung up the phone resolutely. Suddenly, the vows that Julian whispered in my ear when we got married came to my mind. I, Julian, swear that in this lifetime, there will be only Emma as my woman. If I break this vow, I will. I didn't let him finish saying the punishment. When you love someone, you can never bear to see them get hurt at all. I had envisioned countless times that I could grow old with him in this lifetime. But it couldn't compare with the reality. I thought that indeed, things are unpredictable. After this phone call, my heart was like dead wood. I quietly basked in the sun in the hospital every day, and often I could stay in the sun for the whole day. Emma, what are you doing here? A familiar voice came and I slowly raised my head to look. Who are you? Looking at the person who looked familiar but I couldn't remember who it was, I asked hesitantly. It's me. Henry. I chased you with Julian in college. He talked on and on. What a pity that Julian got you. What's wrong with you? Why are you here? Where's Julian? Another series of questions. Now that I had become slow in response, I didn't know how to answer and could only remain silent. Then, as if he had seen something unbelievable, he held me tightly. Brain tumor. Emma, you? He looked at me and said with difficulty. Then, as if to comfort me, he said, nowadays medical technology is so advanced. Your illness will surely be cured. Well, I think so. Looking at the red wristband on my hand, I understood and nodded to him affirmatively. Obviously, I was the one who was sick, but I still had to comfort others. Thinking of this, I laughed as if I had found something interesting. Seeing that I laughed, he felt relieved and told me, I've just started working in this hospital. If you need anything, you can come to me at any time. I'm now in the neurology department. Okay. I answered softly. For several days in a row, he came to my ward, but Julian didn't show up. Where's Julian? Why are you the only one here these days? He looked at me with confusion. Our company is going public, and he's quite busy. I didn't have much strength, and it was a bit hard for me to answer. You're in such a condition, and he's still at the company. Does he even know what's important? He was a bit indignant. It's okay. I can manage by myself. Before I could finish my words, I started coughing violently. In the end, my whole chest was heaving violently because of the cough. Henry helped me catch my breath while cursing Julian. I couldn't bear to hear him scolding Julian. After thinking about it, I decided to tell him everything. He was a person who was both familiar and strange to me. After listening to my story, he slowly said, Emma, this matter isn't fair to Julian. I think he has the right to know about it. What do you think? I didn't say anything. Seeing that I was so stubborn, Henry had no choice. In the following days, he came even more frequently. From time to time, he brought me a lot of food and daily necessities. He said some encouraging words to me. The days with his company made me look forward to my time in the hospital. Thinking of what he said that day, I suddenly began to regret the decision I had made. Was it right to divorce Julian? Was it fair to him that I endured the pain alone? Deep in my heart, there was a voice faintly urging me to tell Julian everything. I secretly left the hospital without permission. I wanted to find Julian. I had figured it out. I really needed him. I thought that at the last moment of my life, he should be by my side. I came to the downstairs of our company full of expectation. When I entered the company, I didn't see any familiar faces and suddenly became a bit confused. I froze on the spot and began to think about what I was doing here. The staff members nearby saw that I was standing still and asked if I needed help. I politely declined their kindness and was then carried along by the crowd flowing in the building and taken outside the door. Looking at the people coming in and out of the office building, at the tall buildings standing in great numbers and the busy streets around, my memory began to get a bit disordered. Beside me, a familiar figure passed by. As if I had found some rare treasure, I immediately ran forward and grabbed him. Julian! Where did this crazy woman come from? I was forcefully thrown off and fell to the ground. Fear surged towards me like waves, and I fainted. When I woke up, what I saw in front of me was still the same white as before, and my eyes were dull. Emma, do you want to go out for a stroll? How about I accompany you? A cautious voice came from beside me. Hearing the voice, I started to focus my eyes to look for the person who made the sound, but I didn't see any familiar face. Perhaps seeing the disappointment that I couldn't hide on my face, that person spoke again. I remember that you liked small animals the most when we were in college. How about we go and have a look together? I didn't respond, but Henry quickly started to pack up my things for me. He held me carefully all the way, afraid that I might get lost. When we entered the shopping mall, that familiar figure passed by me again. This time, thinking of the experience of being thrown off last time, I didn't rush forward. I thought that Julian must have been deeply hurt by me and wouldn't show up beside me. When we came to the cat cafe and saw all kinds of kittens inside, I suddenly felt purified. There was a ragdoll cat quietly staying aside, just like how I was when I was alone before. I picked it up lovingly, and it was also very docile and snuggled up to me, bringing me a bit of comfort. When I looked up, Julian's figure appeared in front of me again. He was holding hands with another woman. The intimacy between the two seemed to be almost overflowing from their eyes. I thought that I really didn't have much time left, and even my eyesight was failing me. However, I saw that figure constantly approaching me, walking straight up to me, and then stopping. The familiar smell made me certain that the person in front of me was Julian. Thinking of the scene that had just appeared in front of my eyes, it turned out to be real and not just my confusion. Suddenly, there was a bitter taste in my throat. Are you divorcing me because of her? How did you two get together? Julian's voice rang out. Before I could defend myself, I heard the woman beside him say, Julian, since you're already preparing for the divorce, let's go. Let's not disturb other people's world of two here. I looked up and it was Sophia, Julian's business partner. She had always been interested in Julian before, but Julian had always rejected her. Sorry, Miss Sophia, I already have a wife. I still remembered at that cocktail party, Julian held my hand and stated his attitude to her again. That day, he stayed by my side the whole time and said to me, I just want everyone to see how wonderful the wife beside me is. The showing off in the past had now become irony. Seeing that I hadn't responded for too long, Julian also felt a bit embarrassed. Yes, I'm the one disturbing them. Let's go. And Henry beside me seemed a bit angry. Julian, you'll regret it. Do you know that she? I'm okay. I'm fine. I interrupted Henry's unfinished words. Suddenly, I didn't have the intention to tell Julian everything. Hate is always more unforgettable than love. Remembering me in this way, maybe everything is just fine like this. I lowered my head, suppressed the tears that were about to fall, and pulled Henry's sleeve with my hand to signal him not to say anything more. Henry was full of anger and unwillingness, but still followed my idea. Julian, who was on the side, saw the little movements between me and Henry, and his angry tone came again. What are you two pretending for again? Emma, since you're so impatient, how about we go to get the divorce certificate today? I'll give you your freedom and you give me my release. Okay, let's go now. Hearing these words, my heart felt as if it was pricked by a needle, but I still tried to respond. Before I knew it, my tears had already fallen. You. Forget it. I'm not free today. Let's do it another day. Julian said disdainfully when he saw my appearance. Hearing his inconsistent attitude, I couldn't figure out what he was thinking. But by now, I didn't have the mood to explore it. I quietly signaled to Henry that I didn't want to stay here anymore. Henry still readily took my things and led me away. When we walked out of the door, Henry's apologetic tone came, Sorry. It seems that I meant well, but did something bad. It's not your fault. I'm really grateful that you can accompany me at this time. How could I blame you? I smiled at him to show that it really didn't matter. Looking back, I saw Henry looking in the direction not far away, with a conflicted look on his face. I followed his gaze and saw Julian opening the car door considerately for Sophia. That passenger seat was the position that Julian had once sworn to me that he wouldn't let any other woman touch. Thinking of this, I felt another pang of sadness in my heart, but still pretended that nothing had happened. It's okay not to tell him. He doesn't deserve to know. Henry comforted me. I joked seriously, don't look at him like this now. If he knew, he would surely be more miserable than anyone else. After I said that, Henry surprisingly didn't respond. I looked thoughtfully in the other direction. Julian and Sophia were already kissing in the car. The joke just now seemed really ridiculous at this moment. I couldn't believe my own words either and remained silent all the way. After Henry settled me down, he said a bit sadly, "Get treated well. Everything will be okay." "Okay." I answered him as usual. Finally, he left with relief. I don't know how many times he had said this in front of me. If it weren't for the increasing health problems and the more disordered memory recently, I would almost have believed it too. I rejected the doctor's proposal for surgery. I thought that before dying, I really didn't want to suffer any more pain. My complexion was getting worse and worse, which always caused panic and worry among the patients around me. So while I was still fairly conscious, I said goodbye to Henry and moved to the convalescent room. There were many patients like me in the convalescent room. With them around, I wasn't lonely during the day. But the late nights were a bit hard to endure. I couldn't help thinking about something and then would burst into tears. Until the divorce, I hadn't received any news from Julian. "Where did you put my dark gray tie before?" One day, while I was basking in the sun as usual, I suddenly received a call from Julian. "I've been busy with the cooperation with Sophia's group recently and haven't had time to talk to you about the divorce." Seeing that I didn't say anything, he explained to me why he hadn't contacted me these days. "Forget it. Coincidentally, don't you want a divorce? Box on the 3rd floor of the Phoenix restaurant. Come here. There's a civil affairs bureau right next to it." After saying that, he hung up the phone. The sound disappeared so quickly that it seemed as if nothing had happened just now. I thought, let's just end it quickly. I, who didn't usually like wearing makeup, rarely tidied myself up to cover my overly sickly face. I took a taxi and rushed to the address he gave. When I got downstairs and didn't see him, I called him. However, he asked me to go up to the box. After hesitating for a while, I still decided to go up and have a look as he said. I knew Julian too well. Since he had gone to such lengths to get me to come here step by step, he must have some arrangements. When I entered the box, besides Julian, Henry and 2 elderly people were also there, and there was a woman beside them whom I hadn't seen before. Almost at a glance, I could tell what he meant by asking me to come here. He thought that I wanted to divorce him because of Henry. I walked over and put the tie I bought from the mall beside him. It was his usual brand. Probably, I wouldn't have the chance to prepare these for him in the future. This was the last time. After putting it down, I wanted to leave without looking back. Whether the divorce could be finalized today or not, I had no reason to stay here now. However, he called out to stop me. "What? Aren't you going to say hello to your old friends?" The waiter, seeing his expression, immediately went out and closed the door. The elderly people beside them looked at Julian with confusion all over their faces. "Who is this? Is she also Henry's friend? Why haven't we heard Henry mention her before?" Hearing the elderly people's words, Julian let out a light snort. "Emma, is this the new partner you found?" Looking at his somewhat crazy appearance, I slowly said to him, "This is our own business and has nothing to do with Henry." Henry's parents were even more puzzled beside them, while Henry couldn't hold back. "Julian, with an attitude like yours, she'll divorce you sooner or later." Hearing Henry's words was like the last straw that broke Julian's rationality. "What's my attitude? And how are you any better? I'm telling you that she didn't choose you in college, and she won't now either." Seeing that the situation was getting out of control, a familiar dizziness came over me. Having a bad premonition, I immediately turned around and walked outside. Fortunately, the door wasn't locked tightly. It opened with a gentle pull. I almost rushed out as if fleeing. When I ran to the corridor outside, the people passing by all looked at me with strange expressions on their faces. Suddenly, there was a trace of warmth in my hand. Looking up, it was a drop of blood. Then there was more and more blood on my hand. I had a nosebleed. This time, it seemed to be even more serious than before. The blood began to flow out of control, dyeing the carpet on the floor bright red. The sense of dizziness overwhelmed me. I was clearly walking on flat ground, but at this moment, it felt like I was walking with 1 foot deep and 1 foot shallow in the mud. Looking at the constantly shaking scenes around me, I had hallucinations again. I seemed to hear Julian calling me from behind. "Emma, stop." I shook my head, trying to respond to him. But I couldn't say a word, as if someone was choking my throat. Then I saw large amounts of blood and heard the terrified screams around me. Julian's voice in my ears became clearer and clearer. "What, do you want to escape before we've settled everything?" I tried to grab something to steady my body. I thought that I couldn't fall down beside him. Julian seemed to be very angry because I didn't respond to him. His voice became louder. "Is leaving me and choosing him the result you want? Answer me." Finally, he walked up to me. I looked at him. He changed from being full of anger to panic as if he had seen a ghost. I wanted to say something to him, to tell him not to be afraid. There was a large wet patch on my chest. My blood didn't seem to stop at all. Was I dying? I raised my hand to touch Julian's face. In this world, he was the one I couldn't bear to part with the most. But he seemed to be frozen in place. Maybe he was still angry with me. So he didn't move at all. He didn't even cooperate when I wanted to touch his face for the last time. I tried hard to reach out my hand forward, a bit anxious to get close to him. I wanted to talk to him, but I couldn't remember what to say at all. He cried and hugged me in disbelief. But he seemed afraid of breaking me and didn't dare to touch me. I thought, it's nice. He didn't push me away again. Even if it was just a dream, it was enough. But he was so scared that he was shaking violently. It was the first time I had seen him like this. His tone was like that of a child who had done something wrong, asking me helplessly, "Honey, what's wrong with you?" However, I still couldn't give him a timely response and just fainted. I hoped it was just a dream. I hoped that he had never been so helpless. I woke up. I couldn't wait to look beside me, but there was no one there. I secretly laughed at myself in my heart. I must be crazy thinking about Julian. Henry walked in. I hadn't seen him for a long time since I said goodbye to him. I was just about to open my mouth to tell him about the dream I had when I heard him, suppressing his emotions and with a somewhat hoarse voice, say to me, "Do you know that your condition is getting worse and worse? Do you know how dangerous it was this time?" After saying that, he couldn't bear to turn his head away again. Oh, so it wasn't a dream. After reacting, I thought that since I was like this, would Julian still not forgive me? I looked at him and wanted to open my mouth to ask where Julian was. Did Julian know about my situation? He seemed to guess what was on my mind. He sniffed and said, "He's outside answering a phone call." "Following your wishes, I didn't let the doctor tell him about your condition." "Thank you," I said weakly. "And I'm sorry. Although I don't know what the gathering was for, I'm sorry for disturbing it. Between us, how could I hold it against you?" Hearing me say so many words, he said half jokingly and half comfortingly, "On behalf of Julian and myself, I hope you won't bear a grudge against him. He's just under too much pressure." I looked at him with great apology. Henry was a very gentle and kind-hearted boy and friend, and he had already helped me a lot. There was no reason for him to be blamed by Julian again. Hearing what I said, he still had a warm smile on his face. "As long as you take good care of your health, I won't blame him." "Okay." I smiled back at him. When Julian, who had finished answering the phone, walked in, he saw this scene. He forcibly inserted himself between me and Henry, separating the two of us. Honey, the doctor said that you just need to rest and recuperate for your condition. Let's go home and rest, okay? Let's not get divorced, okay? However, Henry interrupted the rest of his words and said to me, Emma, have you forgotten what happened between him and that woman that day? Recalling the intimacy between him and Sophia that day in my mind, I didn't answer. I didn't do anything. I was just trying to make you angry on purpose, honey. You know me. Looking at Julian's sincere eyes, my heart softened. He took me back home. The home was exactly the same as when I left, with no trace of anyone else. Under his care, my complexion gradually became less pale. We returned to the affectionate state we were in before, and he liked to stay by my side even more. Every night when I fell asleep, I could feel that he hugged me even tighter than before. It seemed that we had patched up our relationship, but only I knew that my body couldn't hold on for much longer. Every day, I tried my best to maintain my best appearance in front of him, hoping that he would remember me at my best. One day, as if casually, I mentioned to him, let's invite Miss Sophia to our home for a meal. I'll cook. He, who was busy in the kitchen, was stunned at first and then refused me. No, I don't want anyone to disturb our world of two. But since I kept insisting, he reluctantly agreed to invite Miss Sophia over the next day. The next day, I put on my makeup more carefully. When the doorbell rang downstairs, I went to open the door. Seeing her carrying a lot of gifts, I quickly asked Julian to come out and help. She looked at me and said embarrassedly, I'm really sorry about last time. I should have come to apologize earlier. It was Julian's nonsense. It should be us apologizing to you. I hope you don't mind. I took her hand and led her into the house, showing her around every corner of the home. Originally, I was supposed to cook, but Julian was really worried that I would be tired, so I could only chat with Sophia aside. The meal was very harmonious. After the guests had a great time and while Julian was cleaning up beside us, I told Sophia my purpose this time. Miss Sophia, do you still have feelings for Julian? Hearing this, Sophia quickly waved her hands. No, don't misunderstand. Since he rejected me last time, I haven't thought about it anymore. You know what happened last time. It was just to play along with Julian's act. Seeing her look of panic, I had to say my thoughts directly. I don't have many days left. She looked at me with confusion all over her face. I didn't rush to answer. Looking at Julian, who was busy in the kitchen, I couldn't help but feel a pang of softness in my heart. I'm sick. The doctor said I don't have many days left. Julian doesn't know about this, and I don't want him to know either. She was shocked all over her face. I comforted her and continued, if you still have feelings for Julian, I'm willing to help you too. This huge piece of news shocked her so much that she didn't recover until she left. She just gave me a deep hug before leaving. Then she earnestly told Julian, Julian, be nice to your wife. Of course, she's my wife. Who else should I be nice to? He said with a smug look. After seeing Sophia off, that night, he and I were lying on the bed, and he looked at me seriously and said, Honey, I want to live like this with you forever. I don't care about anything else. I just want to be with you. Hearing his silly words, I comforted him as usual. Since I came out of the hospital, he had become worried about gains and losses. I didn't know if he had sensed something. I didn't know how many days had passed. I started to lose track of time. Suddenly, I received a text message on my mobile phone that said, I'm willing. It was sent by Sophia. I quietly deleted this text message. I told Julian that I wanted to visit the place where we got married. He immediately put down the work at hand and quickly went to check the plane tickets. I held his restless hand and told him that I would arrange this trip. On the day of departure. Recently, my body hadn't shown symptoms of dizziness or bleeding. Like a flashback before death, my energy was getting better and better. I packed his luggage for the trip as usual. Looking at the full suitcase, he said to me in surprise, Honey, do you want to drive me out of the house? I couldn't help laughing when I saw his bitter face. Going on a trip is almost like moving house. It's always good to bring more things. Actually, I didn't know if there would be another chance like this, so I couldn't wait to pack everything I could think of. He hugged me and said, "Okay, I'll do whatever you say." At the departure airport, looking at his excited appearance, a tear slid down the corner of my eye. I wiped it away where he couldn't see. Finally, it was time to check in. It was as if a big stone had finally fallen from my heart. I made an excuse that I wanted him to go first and that I needed to go to the toilet. It wouldn't be so convenient after getting on the plane. He seemed to have a premonition of something and refused to let me go no matter what. I comforted him again and again, telling him that I would be back soon. He had no choice but to give in. Watching him get on the plane, I turned around and left and sent a message to that number. I stood by the window and watched the plane take off. Thinking of Julian's grumpy face, I couldn't help laughing. After laughing, there was a pain in my heart as if it had been cut by a knife. So, this was how it felt to be replaced. In an instant, it seemed that I had lost all my strength and my breathing began to become rapid. I saw someone reaching out their hand to me. I wanted to hold it and take one more look at Julian. But I missed it and I heard the dull sound of myself falling down. It was so distant as if it came from another century. More and more people gathered around me. The hurried and chaotic screams and footsteps kept ringing in my ears. I wanted to open my eyes and tell them that I was okay and would be fine after a short rest. However, my eyelids seemed to be glued together and couldn't be opened no matter what. In a daze, I seemed to see Julian smiling at me. My body also became light and I could easily touch his face. But gradually, his smiling face turned into crying bitterly. I really wanted to tell him, "Don't be sad. I love you so much." I also wanted to say to him, "It doesn't matter." And, "Goodbye, Julian."